Gentlemen, a formal welcome. Welcome back to Torah Studies. This is our weekly look at the Torah portion. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Torah portion this week is a double portion. Double trouble. If trouble means great, then yes, double trouble. Behar-Bechukotai. And with these two Torah portions, we very efficiently and seamlessly close out the book of Leviticus. Wow, it feels like just yesterday that we started the book of Leviticus, and here we are capping off the third book of the Torah with a double header. There are a bunch of double headers, as you've probably noticed in the book of Leviticus. Not every year, but this year we've kind of like combined them much together. So here we are. Before we get started, I want to dedicate tonight's class to the loving memory of my grandfather and my grandmother, Rabbi Herschel Pfeffer, my grandfather, and Mrs. Rosella Pfeffer, my grandmother. My grandmother passed away in 2009, I believe. My grandfather passed away in 2021. So that's how many years apart? That is 2009, 12 years apart. And what I think is remarkable is that my grandfather passed away a day before my grandmother's yahrzeit. So she passed away on the 21st day of Iyar, and his yahrzeit is a day before, on the 20th of Iyar, 12 years later. These are my mom, who's here tonight, also on the Zoom, my mom's parents, very influential in my life, and dedicating tonight's class and all the learning to their memories. Indeed, may their memories be for blessing, and I'm always thinking about them. And may their neshamas have an aliyah, which means an elevation above, and continue to get nachas from the whole family, and myself included, and my mom, and continue to be a good advocate to request good blessings on high for the entire mishpacha. Let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
Sounds like there's been a response to the request for the blessing. There was some noise in the background over here. So, all right. Listen, we're stirring the heavens. Things are bound to shift a little bit. Okay. Tonight we focus on. It's a double portion, but the specific topic is going to be on the first of the two. Oh, before we get into the learning, I do need to mention Happy Lag BaOmer. Happy Lag BaOmer. Today is the 33rd day of the Omer. The Omer means from the second day of Passover until the next major holiday, which is Shavuot, which is coming up in a few weeks. So we count traditionally. We traditionally count 49 days. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and we finish counting 49 days, and on the 50th day we don't count it, but that begins the holiday of Shavuot exactly 50 days after the first day of Passover. And on the 33rd day of the Omer, which is today, it's a day of celebration. It's a mini holiday. It's not like a biblical holiday. It's a mini holiday. Traditionally, the Talmud says the students of Rabbi Akiva died in a plague between Passover and Shavuot this time of year. And on the 33rd day of the Omer, the dying ceased, I guess, for 24 hours. So it's a day of kind of celebration. It's a day of kind of joy within the otherwise sadness. Yeah, sorry? Lots of weddings. Yeah, good day for a wedding, a good day for a haircut, for a first haircut. A lot of boys get first haircuts. There's a lot of bonfires that are lit. The other reason for the celebration is because it is the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And he was one of the great sages of the times of the Mishnah. He lived right around 2,000 years ago. And he is the author of the Zohar, the primary work of Kabbalah. And we do a lot of Kabbalistic or spiritual insights. And so today, and when he passed away, he told his students, before he passed away, do not mourn my passing. Instead, on the anniversary of my death, celebrate my life. Don't cry for the loss, but rejoice for the life that I lived and the contribution that I made and the legacy that I've given over to you. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful message about how to live with a legacy. And indeed, we honor his wishes by celebrating Lag BaOmer. a lot of music, celebration, food, bonfire. The reason for the bonfires is because the Zohar says, the Kabbalah says that when he passed away on this day, so right when he passed away, there was a fire that kind of like circled his bed or whatever it was, wherever he passed away. It kind of circled his bed, and it signified this idea of his holiness of his soul that had departed from his body. And because of that fire, we symbolize it with bonfires, typically in Meron, where he's laid to rest in Israel. And it's a day of celebration, celebrating the life and legacy of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. By the way, if you want to know more about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, tonight's not the class for it, but you can certainly Google it and find out more information. All right, so on to today's class. We're going to focus on the first of the two Torah portions, Behar. And the Torah portion of Behar opens with a very interesting mitzvah, a mitzvah that I think many are familiar with, which is the idea of a sabbatical year. And I would say that sabbatical, the concept of a sabbatical, has crept maybe has a negative connotation, has made its way into just the life of people, right? Not specifically, exclusively to Jewish law, but the concept of taking a sabbatical. People in work or whatever it is, they take a sabbatical, they take a year off, and truth is, I've never taken a sabbatical, so I'm not sure what you do on a sabbatical, but I would imagine that you, I don't know, play golf, go fishing, tour the world, I don't know, whatever you would do on a sabbatical, right? Go to Israel. There you go. So many things to do on a sabbatical, and the original sabbatical year was not about a vacation, but it was a specific law pertaining to the agriculture, and we're going to read this inside. Again, it's the opening of this week's Torah portion. Give me a moment. I am going to pull this up for myself. Please bear with me. And Adrian, first of all, Adrian, it's great to see you. Second of all, if you don't mind, please get us started with text number 1.
God spoke to Moses of Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come to the land that I am giving you, the land shall rest a Sabbath to God. You may sow your field for 6 years, and for 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in your produce. But the 7th year, the land shall have a complete rest, a Sabbath to God. You shall not sow your field, nor shall you prune your vineyard. And you shall count for yourself 7 sabbatical years, 7 years 7 times. And the days of these 7 sabbatical years shall amount to 49 years for you. And you shall sanctify the 50th year, and proclaim freedom for slaves throughout the land, and for all who live on it. It shall be a Yobel Jubilee for you, and you shall return each person to their property, and you shall return each person to their family. This 50th year shall be a Jubilee for you. You shall not sow, nor shall you reap its aftergrowth or pick its grapes that you had set aside for yourself. And the land will then yield its fruit, and you will eat to saturate and live upon it securely."
All right, thank you for reading that. So there's a lot of information. I kind of want to go back to the beginning of that reading and just walk us all through that. So first of all, interestingly, this mitzvah is introduced with the Torah telling us God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. We don't usually find this. It's usually God spoke to Moses and said the following, and it's recorded from posterity. Here, it's God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, which prompts the commentators to ask the question, why of all mitzvot, I mean, we know 10 commandments were said at Mount Sinai and whatever, but like, why is this singled out? And there are a number of answers given. Again, tonight, I don't want to necessarily get into all the answers. There's a lot of themes that connect it, but it's interesting. But our sages do learn out that just like this mitzvah was stated to Moses with all its details at Sinai, so too all of the mitzvot, even though it doesn't typically use this preamble, God taught Moses. In case you're wondering, when did God teach Moses all these laws? Remember when Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain? So just to quickly recap, and the holiday that's coming up is the anniversary of the giving of the Torah at Sinai, which is when God spoke the 10 commandments. Right after that, like the next day, Moses goes up the mountain and receives the rest of the Torah, all of the laws, all the mitzvot, all the details, and then comes down the mountain to hand over the 2 tablets, or to, deliver them to the people, upon which he finds them, what's a good word? He finds them busy with the golden, it's not a great word. I could have come up with a way better word, but whatever. A little bit busy, preoccupied, otherwise spoken for with the golden calf, and shatters the tablets, and then, of course, the story unfolds from there. The point is that on the mountain for those 40 days, God was telling Moses all of these laws and all these details, including the one that we're reading right now, which is the law of Shemitah. So now, let me just go quick. So that's the kind of opening. Then this text continued as Adrian read, and God says like this: when you come into the land of Israel, now this is a mitzvah that's exclusive to the agriculture of the land of Israel. So we don't have this mitzvah in Atlanta, Georgia, or in Pittsburgh, PA, or wherever you might find yourself, right? This is not a mitzvah that is global. It's a very local Israel mitzvah. They didn't perform it traveling through the wilderness. It was only upon entry in the land of Israel. And what is the mitzvah? You can sow your field for 6 years. You can prune your vineyard, gather in the produce, meaning you basically work the field and enjoy the fruits of your labor for 6 years. But on the 7th year, just like 6 days a week you work, and the 7th you rest, 6 years you work the field. On the 7th, the field is meant to not be worked. It's meant to lie fallow. The field is given a rest for the 7th year. That is it. In fact, Jewish law says, not only do you rest the field by not planting and not plowing, not working it at all, not only that, it's not even yours. Meaning, it is kind of yours, but you treat it as if it's not yours, which means anybody, if anything is growing or anything is there, anyone can come in and enjoy. It's not yours more than anyone else's. Basically, it's acknowledgement that God owns the land and we are but tenants. We think human beings have a tendency to, we live for a relatively short amount of time. Please God, 120 years, right? But that's in the expanse of time. That's a small window, and yet at our peak we say, I own this and I own that, and this is mine. And what are you doing? And get off my land and get off my property, right? All of that stuff. Sorry, isn't it get off my lawn? I think that's the line, right? Get off my lawn, right? As they say. We take it very seriously. And so every 7 years, the Torah reminds us the land belongs to God. And as we also read, there's a law of Yovel. So Shemitah is the sabbatical year every 7 years. And then after 7 sabbatical years, and I love how the Torah does the math for us. 7 times 7 is 49. And I'm like, oh, they had the same numbers back then also. Unbelievable. Math hasn't changed. After 49 years, there's another mitzvah. And that's the mitzvah Yovel. Yovel is the Jubilee year. The 50th year is a year where everything resets. In fact, homes that were purchased were only purchased until Yovel. Things return back to their ancestral divisions. A lot of things were reset. Anyone who was a servant, and that's a topic for itself, why would servitude be allowed? But in the way that Torah allows it, which is it's kind of like a live-in situation. But even then, the individual would reset, and everything kind of resets back that 50th year, that Yovel year. Okay, that leads to the very next statement of the Torah. Now let's continue inside, and this is going to be text 1. Oh, Adrian, if you don't mind, text 1b.
And when you say, what will we eat in the 7th year? We will not sow, and we will not gather in our produce. Know then that I will command my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will yield produce for 3 years. And you will sow in the 8th year, while still eating from the old crops until the 9th year, until the arrival of its crop, when you will eat the old crop.
Perfect, thank you. So this is the very next verse, right? We read first through verse 19, and then verse 20, the very next verse. The Torah addresses the question that's popping up in everyone's mind, which is, what are we going to eat? And by the way, I know we live in a different time, so like if my field, which I don't have, didn't produce produce, or didn't yield produce, well, I guess I would have to go to Whole Foods. How about that? I have an Amazon return anyway. I'll do my Amazon return. I'll get some produce. By the way, My life today. I did an Amazon return and I bought some oranges. I feel like I'm living biblically, right? So this is great. This is perfect. Go to Whole Foods. I don't need to farm my stuff. I'll take a year off, but I'll buy food. There's no Whole Foods, right? If your farm wasn't producing, what were you going to eat? The entire land of Israel, all the fields were not being worked in the 7th year. What are you going to eat halfway through the 7th year? What are you going to eat in year 8? What's the plan? Okay. So the Torah says, when you ask the question, what are we going to eat? Here's the plan. In the 6th year, the land will produce so much food that it's going to be enough food for the 6th year, the 7th year, right? And even the 8th year, meaning the first part of the 8th year, until the field starts producing once again. I don't know, again, not a farmer, shocking, right? But I don't know how long it would take if you resume, plowing and planting and whatever in years, I guess it would be year 8, which is really year 1 of the next cycle. Like, how long would it take until stuff starts coming up? It's definitely not the first day. So the yield in the produce of year 6 lasts for 6, 7, and at least part of 8. So that's 3 years of produce. Yeah.
Is that for all Israel or for the individual farmer? Does each individual count it for himself?
Oh, excellent question. Is it an objective count or a subject? Meaning, does the sabbatical cycle begin when I buy my field?
Yeah.
Or is there an objective clock?
Right.
Good question. The answer is objective. It's kind of like Shabbos, right? Like,
Okay.
I might have been born on a Tuesday. I think I was born on a Tuesday. But a few days later, it was still Shabbat. Like, it doesn't, right? So it's an objective count. So if you acquire a field in year 3, that's great. So now, here, Ramon, so you got it year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, you got to stop, and the cycle picks up. Good to see you. How's it going? All right. Good? Makes sense? I have 2 questions. And these 2 questions, I think, are really good. They're also really technical, but I think they're really good. Okay, question number 1. And as you probably know by now, the role of questions is not just when you don't understand. Well, let me say it a different way. The role of a question, a good question, is not to put up a wall, to create like a block in an idea, but on the contrary, it's to point us in a direction of a bigger idea. It's about opening a door. It's not putting up a block. It's about opening a door to a vantage point that's much greater than our previous vantage point. So here we go. Question is like this. The Torah, and let me just map this out one more time, and you'll see where the wrinkle is in just the construct of the verses. First, the Torah talks about the mitzvah of Shemitah, the sabbatical year. 6 years you work the field. The 7th year you don't work the field. That's part 1. Part 2, do this 7 times, 7 cycles of 7 years, that's 49 years. And the next year, year 50, is the Jubilee year, and then the Jubilee stuff. That's part 2. And then part 3 begins. And if you're going to wonder, what are you going to eat in the 7th year? Do you see my question? Why is part 3 after part 2 and not after part 1? You with me? I don't know if I want to say that whole thing again, because I feel like I laid that out pretty nicely. In other words, the Torah should have said, here's the law of the sabbatical year. And if you're going to wonder, what are you going to eat? Here's the answer. And then move on to segue to the Jubilee year. But first address the question, which first comes up when you hear about not working the land the 7th year. It's like, question in the back. Yeah, what are we going to eat? Boom, here's your answer. Then we can move on. Why is it sabbatical year, Jubilee year? Oh, about the sabbatical year, here's how it's going to work. How does that make any sense structurally? Technical question, but an important one because it's going to open up a brand new understanding of this narrative. Yes? Question number 2. Okay, let's look again at text 1b. Okay, focus one more time, please, on text 1b, and take a look at what it says. Take a look at that opening verse, verse 20. And when you say, what will we eat, etc. You notice that second word, when? What do you think it should have said instead of when? I think, if you ask me, it should have said, and if. If means You might say, you might be wondering, what are you going to eat? And when you say, however, the Torah saying, and when you say implies that it's an inevitability that the person is going to ask this question. Who says it's an inevitability? Who says someone's going to challenge God and say, what am I supposed to eat? How am I going to eat? And then God answers, I'll take care of you. Maybe you have a believer amongst the crowd who is not concerned. How do we know that it's inevitability that a person's going to ask, how are we going to eat? Maybe we have amongst us at least one, if not more than one, person who believes and just has faith and trust in God. That's the second question. Question one. Hold on one second. Question one. Why does the discussion about what are we going to eat in the sabbatical year come after the Jubilee year and not right after the section of the sabbatical year itself? And question number two, why does the Torah frame it as a question that will be asked as opposed to a question that may be asked, might be asked? Okay, these are not my questions, meaning they're not original questions that I've come up with. These are classic questions from the commentaries. And again, these questions are going to open up a brand new understanding of this entire episode. Take a look, please, at text number 2. Toba, please read this one from the Alshach.
It's worth paying attention to the wording. And when you say, what will we eat? For this verse seems out of place. It really belongs earlier, right after the command, you shall not sow your field, and not here, after the text has been interrupted by other matters. Okay, so this is the first question I asked. The first question I asked is, why is the question about what are we going to eat after the Jubilee year and not directly after the sabbatical year? Again, it's been interrupted, and it seems a little out of place. And the second question I just asked is addressed in text number 3 from the Malbim. You know what? Ramon, please read text number 3 from the Malbim.
And when you say, I have already explained that there's a difference between the word ki and the word im. The word im indicates uncertainty, while the word ki indicates certainty. Therefore, from the fact that it is not say im tamru, if you will say, the conclusion is that they will certainly say this, for God knows their inclination and that they're destined to say so. Thank
you. So the truth is, let me walk that back a half a second. The Malbim doesn't ask the question as much as he says, well, there you go, ye people of little faith, right? It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. When you wonder, what are you going to eat? Because that's going to be human nature. You're going to wonder how you're going to eat. So it's not an if, it's a when. But that approach, he kind of asks it and answers it. But that approach is a little bit, in my opinion, and this is with all due respect, of course, to the Malbim, who's a great scholar, it's a little bit cynical. When I say cynical, it's a little bit, it's assuming that people will be those that question. And I guess if you look at, the Torah and we're coming up to the book of Numbers, and I like to say, for the first time tonight, that maybe it's called the book of Numbers because we can count how many times the Jewish people complained to God in the book of Numbers, right? Maybe that's part of it. The point is that that's one approach, but I'm going to stick with the question. Why does it say when you ask and not if you ask? And this question, this second question, opens us up to a conversation about the role and the nature of a question. And this is going to be very, very important. It's important to understand the role of a question in Torah study, in Judaism, in Torah, in faith. There's two types of questions. And, there's more than two types, but we'll talk tonight about two types of questions. And the way I want to frame it is by referencing Passover and the Passover Seder. Because at the Passover Seder, we talk about the 4 sons, or the 4 children. I'm going to open up, for a quick moment, this is a Siddur prayer book, but it's got in it an excerpt from the Haggadah, from the Passover experience. It'll be the same whether you use a Siddur for this or whether you use a Maxwell House Haggadah. It's all the same. It's all in there. The only trick is finding where it is in the prayer. Oh, here we go. Okay, so stay with me. Let me read to you. The first 2 sons, of course, are the wise son and the wicked son. Pay attention to their questions, because we call one the Chacham, the wise one, and we call the other one the Rasha, the wicked one. But listen carefully. The wise one, what does he say? What are the testimonies, the statutes, and the laws which the Lord our God has commanded you? That's the wise son. And what does the wicked one say? The wicked one, what does he say? What is this service to you? Now, if you read it, which I just did, it doesn't really sound that much different. Because the retort to the wicked son is, you see, he says to you, but not to him. Thus, he excludes himself from the community, because it says, what is the service to you? Upon which I raise my hand humbly and say, the wise son also said you. What are the testimonies, the statutes, and the laws which the Lord our God has commanded you? It also says you. What's going on here? You lambast the so-called wicked. First of all, it's not like they wear like signage. It's not like they're wearing like a big W for the wicked son or a big, oh wait, wise would also be W. Okay, whatever. It's not like they're wearing like a, what do they call it? Like a collegiate, a letterman jacket, like with like their title, wise versus wicked. It's just people asking questions. And yet we're saying, if you say the word you, that makes you wicked. And then the wise son also says you. So then why is one deemed wise and worthy of answering? The other one is worthy of blunting his teeth and deemed wicked. They both say you. What are the testimonies, etc., that God has commanded you? Or what is this service to you? They both say you. Okay. Obviously, it's not exactly the same wording, but again, they both say you. So I think we have to move a little bit beyond the technical content of the question and understand the following. When it comes to speech, when it comes to questions, there are two types of questions. There's the type of question, see, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's not just the content of your words, it's the context of your words. So you might, both people, two people, person A, person B, they both might be using the word you, but one is insinuating that he's on the outside of what you are doing, and one is insinuating that he's on the inside, together with you, even though he used the word you. The wise son doesn't say, like, what are you doing? He says, explain to me, what are you doing? The wicked son says, what are you doing? It's like, well, we can apply it back to our case in a second. But you see the difference?
Yeah.
Two people, they might even say the same words, but one implies a question. There's a genuine question. There's an authentic question, a genuine question, a curious question. And then there's a question that's an attacking question. That's a gotcha question. That's a, how do you expect me to do this if you do that question? It's an accusatory question. Two types of questions. One, we almost might say it this way. One question seeks an answer. The other question is the answer. I should probably explain what I mean. One question is genuinely curious and wants an answer. And the other question is basically making a declaration. You ever hear somebody in a conversation saying, trying to think of a good example, like, what do you expect me to do with this, that, or the other? You're not asking a question. You're making a statement. I don't like what's going on, right? It's not a question that seeks an answer. It's a question that's giving an answer, meaning making a statement. By the way, in communication therapy, whatever it is, one of the big, and we've done courses on communication from a Torah perspective. This is one of the major ideas that crosses over in both, psychology as well as Torah. It's very important that if you ask a question, that the question should be a question. If you want to make a statement, make a statement. You want to ask a question. But they shouldn't cross. Don't ask questions that are really statements, because then the other person, you're going to answer the question. They're not looking for an answer. Make sense? I feel like I'm asking questions now that, rhetorical also, but all right, forgive me. Okay, so let's jump into a few texts, and then we're going to bring it back to the sabbatical conversation. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at text number, which one, 5? Okay. Adrian, you up to reading?
Okay.
Text 5.
It is generally understood that the phrase, the Torah spoke regarding 4 sons, refers specifically to the mitzvah of telling the story of Exodus on the night of Passover. In other words, the questions of the sons all relate to the commandments of that night and to the fact that the Torah instructs us to respond to each son according to his temperament, but only in the context of Passover. The interpretation is indeed correct according to the halakhic approach. However, in the simple meaning of the verses, the question of the simple child is not about the mitzvah of Passover at all, but about the mitzvah of the firstborn, as that is the subject immediately following his question. Likewise, the wise son, in the plain sense of the text, is not asking about Passover either, but about mitzvah in general. Accordingly, whenever we encounter a question in the Torah about a mitzvah, we must ask, which type of son is speaking here? It's not necessarily a question born of doubt or weak faith, nor one that must be answered to secure the questioner's observance. It can be the question of a wise son whose goal is simply to clarify and understand the details of the matter, just like the wise son's question of Behar-Bechukotai.
Thank you. This is the Rebbe explaining that when you encounter a question, it's important to know what type of question it is. Is it a question where somebody's making a statement and then you need to kind of like, you're on the defensive? Or is it simply a question that is an innocent and honest question of somebody looking for more information? By the way, I probably should mention this, and for some reason I can't think of any real life examples, but has it ever happened to you where somebody asks you a question and you read it as an accusation, and until they clarified that it wasn't actually an accusation, it was just simply seeking more information? I think it happens, right? It happens sometimes. It's like you start getting offended and then you realize, I might be misreading this. Sometimes that's exactly the intent, but sometimes we misread it. And that's the point over here. Sometimes it might be coming from a judgmental place or an accusatory place, a wicked place as it were, and sometimes it's coming from an authentic place of learning, of seeking, which is a wise place to come from. Now this leads Rabbi Jonathan Sachs to point out something marvelous, as he often does, really beautifully written, text number 6. Tova, please read text 6.
The 4 children are ignorant of the Jewish people. One asks because he wants to hear the answer. A second asks because he does not want to hear the answer. A third asks because he does not understand. The fourth does not ask because he doesn't understand that he doesn't understand. Ours has never been a monolithic people.
Yeah, I don't even think he's speaking of the Jewish people, I guess, in the context of Passover, but I don't know that there's any one people that has a lock on these 4 types of modalities. Look, sometimes a person asks in good faith. Sometimes a person asks not in good faith. Sometimes a person asks, with background information. Sometimes a person asks because they don't even have the background information. And sometimes a person doesn't ask because they don't even know that there's something to ask. There's something in psychology called, I'm going to mess this up, I think it's called the, wait. Is it the Kruger-Dunning effect? Dunning-Kruger effect? I reversed it?
Yeah.
I got close though. All right. I knew I would mess it up. The Dunning, you said Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay. And that effect, the way I recall it from a podcast that I listened to, which was a great podcast, might have been This American Life. Anyway, so he said, so the context was, let me think of this. The context was, if you ask, that they did like a survey or a poll, and they asked college students coming out of an exam, how well did you do? Those that were the most confident scored the lowest. It's like
That makes sense.
right? And the question is, well, hold on, how does that, what are the mechanics of that? The more confident, the lower you scored? Why? And so, what do you think?
If you score well, you've worked hard, and you want to get everything right, and when you're through, all you could think about is what you may have gotten wrong.
Okay.
But it turns out that you did really well.
Right. Whereas if you don't study, and you don't know it, so then
I don't know. I don't understand that.
the
part.
flip side.
I just understand.
I'll tell you the way I understand it. I'll tell you the same reason they missed the answers on the test is why they also missed this answer. They got those questions wrong. They got this question wrong. Are you with me?
Okay.
They got those questions. The more you get wrong, the more you get wrong. It's like, I didn't know that one. I didn't know also how well I did. I mean, there's a lack of awareness, lack of self-awareness. So what's the point? The point is oftentimes, not only is it that we don't know, but we don't know that we don't know. We think we know. It's like, I think I did well. You don't even know that you don't know. You don't even know that you got them wrong. You with me on this? Okay, this could be a class unto itself. But look up the podcast. It's really good. Okay, so back to the story. There's two ways. Let's go back to our story of the sabbatical year. There's two ways that the person could ask the question. Imagine God says to Moses, and Moses tells the people, guys, listen up. We're still in the desert. We're in the wilderness. When we get into Israel, and everyone gets some land and a field and whatever, and is farming, here's how it's going to work. 6 years, you're going to work the field. The 7th year, it lays fallow, and then you pick it up, after that. Two options for the question. Question number 1. How are we going to eat? This is crazy. This is Meshuggah. We're going to die. We're not going to eat. We're going to starve to death. How are we going to eat? Question 1. Question 2. Option 2 of the question is, wow, this is remarkable. I believe you, God. I'm sure you'll take care of us. But what are the mechanics? How are we going to eat? Like, what's the plan? Should we save food? Should we make another plan? Should we import from Brazil? Like, what's the mechanics? How are we going to eat? One question is, how are we going to eat? And the other one's, how are we going to eat? Two completely different questions. So which one is the Torah speaking to? The answer is, the Torah is speaking to the good faith question. Not the I have no faith in God, we're all going to die question, but the I believe in God, it'll all be good, but what are the mechanics? How does it play out? What do I need to do? What do I need to know to make this happen on my end? That's the question. How do we know that's the question? I already told you. The two questions I asked before point to this type of the question. Every good question is the answer. You just didn't see it yet. First question I asked is, why is this question only after the conversation about the Jubilee year? It should be right away. It should be right away only if you have no faith. And you hear about resting, then suddenly, well, how are we going to eat? That's a panic question. But for the person of faith, you listen to the whole message, and you hear more information, and then at the end you say, all right, quick question. What are we supposed to do? Like, what are the mechanics? You see the difference? If the question was, oh my God, we're all going to die, what's the plan? Then they would not have waited for, it would have needed to be addressed right away, right after the sabbatical year, before the conversation about the Jubilee year. But it's not that type of question. And that's why the Torah also says, and when you ask, not if you'll ask. If only those of little faith, but when everybody can ask that question. The question of when, meaning, not the question of when, but the question that's phrased as a when question, meaning this is something that you will need to ask, is not the question of those that don't have faith. It's a question that everyone will have to ask at some point, saying, so what do we actually need to do? So if I'm not working the field in the 7th year, is manna from heaven falling? Are we importing food? Are we storing up the food? Is the land, I'm just running to the answer, right? Is the land going to produce more in the 6th year? And that's the answer. Yes, it's going to produce more. Make sure you can store it, and that's it. A lot of canned peas and canned corn. I'm sure they had corn in that part of the world at that time, right? Yeah, not exactly. Okay, make sense? Yes? Yes? All right, let's go. Let's read some text inside. Here we go. Let's do this. This is going to be text number 7. Toba, please take it. Wait, did you just read?
Yeah, but it was short.
You want to do 7? All right, perfect.
By placing the verse, and when you say, at the very end of the entire discussion, even after the laws of Yovel, the Torah makes it clear that this is not the question of a wicked son whose doubts must be corrected to ensure he fulfills the mitzvah of Shemitah. Rather, it is a question of a wise son, Having just read God's promise, the land will then yield its fruit, and you will eat to satiety. The wise son wishes to understand the specifics of that blessing. In what manner will God's blessing unfold during the 7 years when we neither sow nor gather in our produce? After all, it could happen in several ways. The Torah's answer is that the blessing will take the form of abundance. The earth will produce such an increase in the 6th year that it will suffice for 3 years, and it will yield produce for 3 years.
Thank you. The Torah is teaching us how the process is going to unfold. And by the way, that line, after all, it could happen in several ways. I gave you a few examples before, but I just thought of another one. Maybe the 7th year, we will miraculously not need to eat. I don't know, maybe. Like, why not? I mean, it could happen many different... So no, the Torah explains, no, it's God explains it's going to happen that the 6th year is going to produce for 3 years. And I think the important lesson here, the Torah is not just telling us the mechanics of the law and also like how it's all going to unfold. The Torah is also teaching us the right way to ask a question. Don't jump to accusations. Don't jump to, questions that come from a place of fear. I mean, how much of life, how much of our lives is lived in fear? Let me just harp on this for a quick moment. How much of our lives, how much are we motivated? How often are we motivated by fear? This idea that if I don't do X, Y, and Z, like then what? So much of life is driven by fear. Like I need to accomplish because if not, then did I even exist? Or FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Like I need to do this, do that, because like everyone else is doing it. I think Torah, one of the things that Torah tries to move us toward is away from fear and toward positivity and toward a proactive way of living, not a fear-based living. Who wants to live with fear? So the Torah says, look, here's the mitzvah, 6 years work your field, the 7th year, you leave it fallow. And don't operate out of fear, operate out of confidence. And the confident person asks the question, great, what should I do? Not sorry, that was the wrong tone. Great. How would we phrase it? Great. Just give me the detail. I just need the details of the protocol of how to do this, and I'm in. What's the plan? But even what's the plan could sound two different ways. Like, what's the plan? Right? Like you wake up on vacation, and someone else was making the plan for the day, and you say, what's the plan for today? That's one way of asking it. Or you wake up and you're already in a bad mood for whatever reason, even though you're seeing palm trees outside. I'm just giving a scenario, right? And you're like, what's the plan? How come we're not doing something already? Right? Two different ways to ask the question. So the Torah is reminding us through these two nuances, really. And again, I just want to, The Matrix. I love The Matrix, right? It's such a good film. And I think, if I recall, in the first movie of the trilogy that became 4 movies, so what do you call a 4-movie thing? Not a trilogy, a quadrilogy? There's got to be someone.
The 4th book in the increasingly and accurately named Matrix trilogy.
What is it? What is it? Say it again.
The Hitchhiker's Guide started as a trilogy, so the later books, they were like the 4th book in the increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's trilogy.
Yeah, because that's why they were epic like that. Also, if I believe the answer to the question of life is 42, right? I think that was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 42, which is the 42 journeys that the Jews traveled, as we'll see in the book of Numbers. 42 is the number of stops that a soul makes on earth, paralleled by the journeys. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Back to our conversation. What's the point? In the first movie, I feel like it's a class now in The Matrix. In the first movie, Keanu Reeves, Neo, as he'll later become known as, sees a cat twice in a row. Remember that? He sees a cat walking, and then again the cat is walking. He's like, glitch in the Matrix, because the whole thing is sorry for the spoiler, the whole thing is software that people are plugged into, and there was a glitch, so he saw the cat twice. That opened his eyes to the fact that it's not reality, that it's fake. In a completely dissimilar way. The questions that we find in Torah, like the wrinkles, like, why is the question placed here or not there? It's not a wall, it's a window. Look a little bit deeper. It's because a question is not meant to come from a place of fear and a place of weakness. It's meant to come from a place of confidence. Be confident. That's the first message of tonight.
Question.
Yes.
So in the time of the temple, when we had the temple, and people were supposed to, put a tag on the first bloom of something and then bring bikurim, was it just excused for 3 years, or?
The first
I
fruits
just don't know. I don't understand how these. I know there are more and more farmers now that are actually doing this in Israel. They're also getting support from Jews from all over the world.
Right. So the first fruits you would have a mitzvah to give year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. Year 7, it's not yours to give.
You didn't?
Year 7,
Oh.
I don't believe so. It's not yours to give. It's not your field officially.
That's the answer.
And then the next year, when stuff grows, whatever grows next under your thing will be yours. Okay, so that's message number 1. If you notice, we still have about 7-8 minutes left because there's a second part to this class. Don't worry, it's not a whole class, but it's the second part to the class. I want to re-examine this entire story now on a cosmic, mystical, and historical dimension. So here we go. The mystics tell us, and let me say this outside first, and then we'll jump inside the text. The mystics tell us, and it's brought in many different places in Jewish thought, that the 6 days of the week correspond to the 6 millennia, 6,000 years of the world's existence, and the 7th day of the week, Shabbat, corresponds to the 7th millennia, the 7th thousand year. Now, just to put it in context, we're talking about the Jewish years. And to put that in context, the Jewish year right now is 5,786. So we're in the 6th millennium, right? We're in this, okay, it's not 6,000, but 6,000 would mean that we already passed 6,000. We're in the 6,000th, 6th millennia, and we're toward the end. And again, in this context, a day corresponds to 1,000 years, and there's sources for this in Psalms. A day, in God's imagination is 1,000 years. And thus, the 7th year is the 7th millennium, which is Yom Shekule Shabbat. Just like Shabbat is a day of rest, a day in which we're not trying to manufacture, a day in which we embrace the beauty of the world as it is, a theme that we speak about. Whenever we speak about Shabbat, that's the prominent theme. It's not about fixing things. It's about recognizing the beauty in things as they already are, created by God. It's a powerful notion. So just like it's like that every week on Shabbat, the 7th millennium is the millennia of the Messianic era, an era of perfection, utopia. The world's a better place, and it's not people, it's not brokenness and people fighting and wars and disease. It's a time of perfection when everything is good and obviously good. May it be very soon. On Shabbat, you can take in Shabbat a little early. You don't have to wait till sundown on Friday. You can, there's an early minyan. Right here in this synagogue, there's an early minyan and a late minyan. Meaning like an on-time sundown, which nowadays is like, what, 8? Yeah? Or there's a 6:40. If there's a 6:40, there can also be a 57:86. I think we're close enough that we can already bring in, the era of peace and the era of, what did they call in the 60s? The age of Aquarius? I don't know if that's the same thing, but that might be the same thing, right? The time to already bring in an era of serenity and wisdom and beauty. All right, back to the story. Our sages also say that the same applies to the 6 years of working the field and the 7th year of the Shemitah, the sabbatical. Same idea. 6 days, 7th day, 6 years, 7th year, also corresponding to the Messianic era. This, my friends, poses a question. Because you tell a person, hey, you and I, we can bring this better time. We can make it happen. Every mitzvah, Maimonides says, every time you face a choice between the right thing and, let's just say, the not so right thing, you should imagine that the world is hanging in the balance, perfectly in the balance. And if you do one mitzvah, one good deed, you can tip the scales for good. And it's not just one more than 50%. The whole thing rushes over. The best example I can give is if you ever take your kids or grandkids to these like bowling arcade places that are like Vegas for kids. You know what I'm talking about? Like neon lights and things are flashing and there's music, right? And it's like the kids get all hyped up. It's like, oh my gosh, right? And they do these arcade things. It's a lot of fun. I like it also. But anyway, so there's one of the games, I love this, as an analogy, I love this game. It's a game in which there's like a round, like a circle thing, and you put in like a token, or like or maybe like you swipe your card and then a coin falls, whatever it is. And the coin drops down, and then there's a slider thing. I'm describing this in a completely terrible way. There's a slider thing, and there's a bunch of coins, and if the one coin pushes the other coins and they fall down inside the machine, then you get like the tickets, or nowadays again you get points on your card, something like that. All it takes is one coin to knock down many, many coins. Everything's hanging in the balance. All it takes is one good deed to push everything and tilt the whole scale on the positive side, and everything rushes down in a good way. A person might say, if they couldn't do this in the earlier generations, how can we do this now? You want me to do this in the 6th millennia? Go back a few thousand years. You had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and Moses, and Aaron, and Joshua. And then you had the great prophets, Samuel. And you had the kings, David, and Solomon. And then you had great scholars and other great prophets, and then you had the Mishnaic era and the Talmudic era, and all of these great people didn't bring in a better world, didn't usher in a better, and we're going to do it? Us? We've run out of steam already, it seems like. It's like we're, relative to them, we're like, if they were angels, we're humans. If they were humans, we're like donkeys. That's not my quote, it's from the Talmud. If the early ones were like angels, then we are like humans. And if they were humans, then we're like a behemoth. We're like an animal. Not to disparage ourselves too much, but like, who are we? How can we get it done? My friends, isn't this the question that the Torah asks on a deeper level? If a person says, how are we going to eat in the 7th year? What's going to trigger the 7th year? How is it going to happen? We're going to do it. Right? Says, how is Mashiach going to, how is the Messianic era going to, you and I doing mitzvahs? You and I? How is this going to happen? So God answers, you know how it's going to happen? I'll bless your actions in the 6th year to make them 3 times as strong. For the 6th year, the 7th year, the 8th year, this is again a non-literal explanation. But lest we ever think that we don't hold a candle to the greats of the past, the great scholars and the great tzaddikim, the righteous people and the prophets and the wise ones of the past, let us remember that it's not about the strength of our own achievements, but number 1, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and number 2, God blesses our efforts in an exponential way. And it's very important to remember that. You know, one of the reasons for the sabbatical year is that, as Maimonides writes, is that every number of years or so, the land needs a rest. It's like healthy. If you overwork the land, then it can just like become depleted. This is true, by the way. There are countries, peoples that have overworked their land and they can't grow anything on it. There are certain places on earth where when you look at an aerial view, it's the same body of land, but you see one is green and one is dirt. Aerial view, green and dirt. And the question is why? And there's like a line dividing them. You know what it is? A border. And the lands had different, and the nations had different policies. One, they respected the land. The other one, they abused the land. You abuse the land, it's over. You have to respect, part of respecting land is not working it consistently and constantly. And so Maimonides says that the sabbatical year is about respecting the land and allowing it to rejuvenate. But you know what that means? By the 7th year, it should already be weak. Because it's already that's why you need a 7th year, because by the 7th year it's weak. So how could the 6th year produced for 3 years. It's the weakest of the years. You with me on the question? The 6th year, it's already been depleted for 6 years. And now you tell me, God, that you're going to give me 3 years of produce from the 6th year? Yeah, God can pull that off. And God can also give us the ability that our simple deeds can go a long distance. Let's read this inside and we'll close out the class. Beautiful second act of tonight's class. Take a look at text 9a. Go through a series of texts. I just said everything outside, but let's read it inside. Just as the sabbatical year abrogates debts once in 7 years, so too the world abrogates its typical existence for 1,000 years, and every 7,000 years it is stated, and God alone shall be exalted on that day. And it says a psalm, a song for the Shabbat day, meaning a day, i.e. 1,000 years that is entirely Shabbat. It says in the explanation, okay, for 1,000 years in your eyes are but like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night. So 1,000 years is like a day, and thus that refers to the Messianic era. Nachmanides says, maybe a little bit more clearly, he says 9b, here we are exposed to a great secret, one of the profound mysteries of the Torah. The secret of the world's eras is hinted to in this passage. Incline your ear to hear what I am permitted to reveal of it, in the manner I am permitted to express it, and if you are worthy, you will understand. Nachmanides was a mystic. So this is, again, a mystical explanation. I've already written in the section of Bereshit, Genesis, that the 6 days of creation correspond to the 6 millennia of the world, and the 7th day, Shabbat to God, corresponds to the future era. That will be entirely Shabbat for the great name of God. As our sages taught, on the 7th day, they would say a psalm, a song for the day of Shabbat, for the time to come, which will be entirely Shabbat and rest for eternal life. Thus, the days of creation hint to the original formulation of the world, while the years of the Shemitah cycle allude to the unfolding of world history. And again, that 7th year is the 7th millennia. To which we ask the question, the caption of text 10 is us, really? Right? Maimonides points out what I just mentioned, the land increases its yield and grows stronger when it lies fallow, which means that it really needed that 7th year, which means that year 6, it's the weakest, which takes us to text number 11. This is where the question, what will we eat in the 7th year, comes in. Standing in the 6th millennium, that's us, when due to generational decline, spiritual decline, we are weaker than those before us, we ask, how can we right now draw down the redemption and bring about the 7th year? God answers and promises, I will command my blessing. When we do the work of the 6th year, the work of exile, carried out with self-sacrifice and a commitment that goes beyond logic, God grants blessing from above so that the planting of the 6th year, even though it is a weakened field, will nevertheless be blessed with God's blessing. Our task is simply to act without calculating obstacles, to value and use the time to the fullest. Then we'll realize that God says, I will command my blessing, and God will bless our efforts exponentially. My friends, this takes us to the end of the class. And this constitutes our second point of tonight's class, which is important. Confidence in our ability to create the change and create the world that we wish to live in. And if we ask ourselves, how can we do it when those that came before us couldn't? Don't overthink it. As Nike once said, just do it. Recognize that God blesses our efforts in a way that is beyond what we put in. We put in this much and God blesses it exponentially. And with this, indeed, the goodness will flow. So again, 2 lessons tonight. And I hope it's not too confusing. Usually it's kind of one lesson that takes the entirety of the class, but here we have 2 lessons. I think 2 beautiful lessons. Number 1, lesson 1 is it's important to ask a good question. And a good question means you're not challenging, you're not of little faith, you're wondering how it's going to work. You're asking, what is it that I need to do to make this work? You're on board, you have faith in God, you're not challenging God, you have faith in God, and you want to know how to make it work. That's the question of a chacham, of a wise person, of someone who's curious and not someone who's challenging. That was the lesson number 1. And lesson number 2 is, I wouldn't say it's the opposite lesson, a little bit of a different lesson and a challenging question, which is, you expect us to usher in a better era? How are we going to do that? And the answer is, don't overthink it. Every act we do, every mitzvah, it might seem little, a good deed, an action that no one even knows about, but it can change the world. And I think I want to end with the starfish story from the archives of my brain. There was once a young boy who was walking along the beach. In Atlanta, we don't have a beach. There's no beach in Atlanta, right? I haven't noticed it. And so it's a young boy walking along the beach, and he's picking up starfish, that's a thing, that had washed ashore, and he's tossing them back into the ocean. Whereupon an older man says to him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm tossing the starfish back into the ocean." He says, "There's thousands of them, tens of thousands washed up. You think that's going to make a difference?" And the young boy holding the starfish and throwing it in says, "To this one, it makes all the difference in the world."
That's nice.
And I think it's an important lesson in life. You sometimes look at the big picture and it becomes super daunting. How are we going to do this? Don't overthink it. One step at a time, one day at a time, one mitzvah at a time. It makes a difference. Make sense? Thank you for joining me tonight for Torah Studies. I do want to make a quick announcement, very important. We have a special event coming up with Jacqueline Saper, who lives in Chicago. And she lives in Chicago. She wrote a book called From Miniskirt to Hijab. She grew up in Tehran in a Jewish family, and she was there in 1979 when the Ayatollah, when the revolution happened, and life changed dramatically. Not only for Jews and other minorities, but also for women. And she found herself suddenly being told how she needs to dress and other things, and she lived there for 9 years post-revolution. And she had a daughter there, and she speaks about her experience before, during, and after. And it's very illuminating. She'll also speak to the current situation, what's going on in Iran. Is there a hope for a better future for the people? What do the people want? What is the regime like? And it's not a political event, but it's rather an event of hopefully inspiration and and insight from a Jewish woman who literally lived through that experience. That is coming up next Tuesday, May 12th. Now you might be wondering, next Tuesday at 7:30, Tuesday, May 12th. What about Torah Studies? I'm glad you asked. We're going to be moving Torah Studies up to Monday night. I don't know if I can address the nach. There's more questions that come up with that move because there's another thing on Monday nights. But we're going to be moving the Tuesday to Monday so that we have the Tuesday 7:30. I know, it's the same time as a conflict. But those that can make it should make it. And then Tuesday night, everyone should be here. Tell your family and friends. She wrote a book, same title, Miniskirt to Hijab, A Girl in Revolutionary Iran. And I have copies. She sent me copies. And she'll be signing the book for those that wish. She'll be signing the book as well at the event. It's an important event to come to. And it's an illuminating event, and that's going to be a week from tonight at 7:30 p.m. Okay?
Yes, you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, you call.
What time is Minyan? I got your site tomorrow night. What time do you
Tomorrow night, they're probably davening around 8:05.
Okay.
Yeah, Mincha Ma'ariv.
Okay.
Yeah. If you come at 8, you'll be safe.
I'll see you at lunch and learn tomorrow.
Yes. You mean at the... Oh, tomorrow. Yeah, 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I'll talk to you about the checkers for sponsorship.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
What day
that.
are we in the month of ER?
ER 18.
Oh,
ER 18. Lag BaOmer is always the 18th, the Chai, right? 18. Good Jewish number. Is the 18th of the month.
because my father's yard site's on the 20th. That's
20th of ER? That's my grandfather's yard site.
wow.
Yeah. 20th of ER. It's also, I didn't mention, it's also my son Eli, his birthday, and he is turning 12.
You mentioned that.
I did mention it Monday, yeah.
But I don't know if you said ER or not.
Yeah, 20 ER. And then my other son, my oldest son, Nussin, is 24 ER, and that is next week. Years like it's a busy few days, as it were. All right, great to see everybody. Ellie and David, good to see you guys. Richard and Doreen and Mom and Dr. Maxie, good to see you guys. And Dasi Meira, good to see you. Glad you were here. And Susan and Kendra, good to see you guys. And of course, our in-person crew, proud and strong and representing Toba and Ramon and Adrian already left, but it's good to see you guys. Great for you to be here with me and with each other.
Does the Tuesday year did it have any effect on Carbona's,
Sacrifice? No. I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Lila
Lala Tov. Have a good night.
And Bert was here for part of it.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good,
but-
good, good. Perfect.
Well, you know, he went to an agricultural college, and that was partially the problem of the Dust Bowl. The land was so overworked. They
Interesting.
couldn't retain anything.
Interesting. Now, I forget which countries it is, but you can literally see the same body of land, and in one space it's completely like unusable, and the other one is just lush and growing, and it's
Jordan
incredible.
in Israel.
Could
You
be.
can tell where Jordan begins when you're down south.
Bye, Ramon. Oh, here you go. Oh, you're still saying. Yeah. Good to see you. Yeah. It's wild.
We were at Keturah one time. We asked, where does Jordan, remember? Where does it start? He said, look where there's no green.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank
All right.
you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. Yes. Hey, Mom.
Yeah, hi, thanks for dedicating the
Of course.
class learning to Bobby and Zaidi. What were the, I mean, I think I know the answer, but what were the Jews supposed to be doing with themselves during this year? Does anybody address that?
It's a good opportunity to focus on the spiritual side of life.
Right, but is there any?
Was there like a formal like thing? I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good question. You know, there was.
In the commentaries?
It's probably discussed somewhere what they would
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought to, bring it up.
It's a good question. Yeah, work on faith, trusting God that it's all going to work out. It's hard to let go. It's hard for people to let go.
Because we're directed to do things for Shabbat.
Right
But-
before. Yeah.
But I don't know, is there anything that directs us to do, what to do on the,
Shemitah.
you know what I,
Yeah.
yeah, Shemitah.
Yeah. Sabbatical. I don't know. Just definitely what not to do. Don't work the field. I'm assuming they
Right.
engaged in more spiritual activity. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. And Lila Tov. Happy Lag BaOmer. See you soon.